in order to claim that you're from Chicago? You can't
It's
just
kind
be
of
like
a
on the
known thing,
outskirts?
yeah, because like there are certain parameters, like because some people will be like, "Oh, I'm from Chicago," but like they're really like from Joliet, and we're like, "No, that's like a whole hour away. That does not count."
Okay. Got
But
it.
like
Got it.
mine was like we're truly in like the county itself, and so for me, I'm like that's pretty much like when I have to go and vote, I'm in Chicago. Like the address is Chicago, so like there's kind of those things. So I think it counts. And obviously, like I spent so much time like downtown Chicago, so I just feel like I'm a true Chicagoan because I know all the spots and all the things to do, all the things probably not to do, but um so I have a wonderful husband that we've been married for 9 years. I have a beautiful boy who's 8 years old. His name is Ezekiel. And then my daughter, who is 7, sorry, I had to do some math real quick in my head. Her name is Scarlett. And so I have a boy and a girl. I have a dog named Evie, which she's might pop in and out because her food is also in my office. So she might just be popping in and out. And then we just got some chickens. So
Oh, no way.
I'm a
How
chicken
many?
mom too. We have 2 chickens. We're about to get more tomorrow. So more to come on chicken life at the Casa Mendoza house. But
Did you get little babies or did you get full grown ones?
no, they were rescue chickens because there was a rooster who kept like picking on. He's really racist, but I wish I could make this up, but this is so true. Like the rooster saw that these 2 specific type of chickens, because there's like different types, like with dogs, there's, different types of dogs. With chickens, it's the same way. And so the 2 that he was picking on had like tan colored like chicken feet, where all the other chickens or hens had like gray colored feet. So the one that he really hurt one of them like really, really bad. Her name was Flappy. She's no longer with us, but
oh no,
he like pecked her so bad that like we took her out. I tried like nursing her and like getting her back to health. And we just kind of determined that she couldn't be with us any longer because of just out of like, she was suffering. And so we just have 2 now, but it's Felicia and Rora are the 2 chickens we have now. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we want to get some chickens. I want to get the ones that have like the little feather poof right here. So then when they walk up at me, they're like, hey, what's up?
Yes. Yeah, those are so fun. It's like
That's
having a nice like poofy hat on.
Yeah. So a dog, 2 chickens, 2 kids, a husband who, I got to throw this in there, is a phenomenal cook, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like chef part-time, but like full-time really. And so it's not even his full day job, but he's so great at it. And I try to just encourage him in that way because it's amazing to eat his amazing foods. And so a lot of the times our dinners are kind of revolved around like, babe, I'm really interested in eating this. Or like my perfect example was when we first like started getting ready to move to Texas. We went to this place called Abuelos and they bring out like 3 different salsa types to you. Well, there's a green one, which is actually a kiwi salsa. Like the base is actually made with kiwis and I love kiwis. Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. If you're looking for a salsa verde that's not like your typical, I really recommend.
I would try that.
And so like we went there and I just was like downing the bowl of salsa because it was so good. And so we went home and then like, maybe a month had passed. We're still like trying to figure out like housing and things like that. And so I was like, babe, I'm really craving some of that salsa from Abuelos. Can you make it for me? And so he literally replicated the salsa and made it for me on like a Taco Tuesday or whatever. So anything that I'm like aspiring to have or anything like that, like he is just got it on point. Like his chiaquias, which is like a Mexican breakfast type dish, is like there's nobody who makes it anything like he does. And it's my last meal, so I tell him, I'm like, you can't go anywhere before me because it has to be my last meal.
That's funny. I love it. I love it. So how did you guys meet?
Okay, so I used to be a manager at Jared the Gallery of Jewelry.
Oh,
And he
okay.
worked in the timepiece department. And so when my store was being closed down, there was a span of about like 2 to 3 months that we had to work in the Bolingbrook location. And so this is all in Illinois still. And so we're there, we're training because there's a lot more of like different brands. So we're still under a like umbrella company. And so we we're training there. We're bringing on new hires because like our store is going to have, we're going to need more people and with the renovation and we're going to so it was kind of our job to really like hire more people and like get us ready for all the new inventory that we got to go pick out too. Because we were in
Oh,
the Emerald
oh,
City and got
that's
to do
cool.
our inventory. That was a lot of fun too. And so I was like the diamond expert, and I still kind of am. I love gemstones. I love all these really cool things. Like God is so cool in the way he created so many different gemstones and elements and minerals and things like that. And so, we were working in his store, and so I would see him all the time. We would just kind of like lock eyes from like across the store.
Oh, yeah.
And so since we weren't really like working, like we weren't on commission then. So we were in their system, but we weren't really like selling anything because our jobs there were just to kind of place us there to kind of assist if they got busy, but we weren't really getting any commission. So there was, one time that EJ, my husband, was like trying to do a sale. And so he brought me in as like somebody to help him. And so like I was like making him so much money because he's commission based, but I don't get anything. So everything goes under his number. So
Oh,
he's getting
nice.
all this money and like we're just like the great duo. And so during this wonderful training program, one of my employees needs to practice being an associate and selling an engagement ring. And so it was pretty dead. There was really not any customers. So we're just kind of, just trying to, just role play. And so I looked at EJ and I was like, will you be my pretend husband? And so then it turned into this whole like flirting fest. It felt really real because we were just sitting there like flirting and really like enjoying this pretend aspect. And so, like very shortly after, it started kind of progressing into this more of like, well, let's go on a date. Like, he's single, I'm single. We were kind of like, and so I had a rule. I was like, I don't work with people that I'm like dating or however you want to
Oh,
say it. I'm like, I don't
yeah.
want to work and date in the same like workplace. I'm like, I'm not about that. But he's like, oh, well, you're leaving, so it'll be fine. And I did. Like, I went back to my store and he still worked at his store until he decided to go a different avenue. But,
Yeah, he had his
so
eye out for the future. It's like, I already got that base covered. We're good.
So
I
yeah,
love it.
we met in a jewelry store and he was my pretend husband. Now he's my real husband. And I just love him more and more every day.
Oh, I love that. That's so sweet. And then what brought you guys out to Texas?
So his company, was doing like a massive layoff. And so we had just bought our house
Oh,
for the first time together. So, cause I also had another rule that I didn't want to like live with somebody before getting married. So we had gotten our apartment. We had an apartment for a year while we had like first gotten married. We had our son and then we had our daughter shortly after. And so then finally, by the time we were able to actually like get our house to have a house, we were perfectly placed. My in-laws were 20 minutes away and my parents were 20 minutes away. We were
oh
right in the
yeah.
middle. And so it was such a great place. And so his company said that it was like kind of probably like February of like 2017. And so we were like, oof, like that's not good. Like, so you mean that like what's going to happen, right? So he actually had an interview for another like, so he works in like auto insurance and things like that. So at the time they were trying to poach him from a place that was local where he wouldn't have to relocate, but it was commission based. So he would have to work like 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, he's like, I want to be here with my family. He's like, the whole point of like having a job is so that you can support your family. But he's like, I want to go to their games. He's like, I want to be a coach. He's like, I want to, go to birthday parties. He's like, I don't want to, be working the whole time. He's like, that's lame. So they said this. They said, okay, well, if you guys, don't want to be a part of the layoff, we'll also do like a relocation package. So you can either move to Charlotte or to Dallas. And so we made like a pro-con list, and Dallas was the one that ended up winning. We have family that lives like southern Texas. We had, the Cowboys. I mean, anything we could think of to be on this list.
The Cowboys, we're going.
Right. And Charlotte was really just not really in for us, because we were just like nothing's really gravitating us toward there, so like don't worry about it. And so thankfully my job, like I can really like transfer anywhere as long as there's like a place for me to move either laterally or get a promotion or anything like that. You can pretty much go anywhere because we're international. And so my job was fine there. I got a job and everything. And so like the day that he had to make a decision, like on whether he was going to do the relocation package or whether he was going to take this other job, I got a scripture verse that literally said, you must suffer like Jesus does. And so I was like, okay, Lord, like we've been in this house for 6 months. We would have to move, like thousands of miles away. And we'd be pretty much like all out on our own. Like that codependency with our parents is going to be gone, like raising our children. We're not going to have grandparents for that. And so I was like, okay, I think this is like truly suffering. And so we decided to move. And that was the big key, like decision maker, was that verse I opened up that morning.
So have you been suffering?
In the past, definitely in the past, I dealt with a lot of like depression. I mean, you get the postpartum like depression too, because Scarlett was only like 6 months old when we moved.
Oh, wow.
So I was still dealing with that, and then not having my support system in the same way, not having the grandparents to help watch the kids for us to go grocery shopping or for us to have a date. Now everything has to be, out of pocket, and money wasn't super, lucrative at that point. And then just so many things, like so many horrible things of just like dealing with like domestic anger and just like hurt and like just navigating marriage and being a parent. And I wouldn't say we're young parents because, I had a kid and, when I was like 25. I think I had Zika when I was 25. So it was kind of like, we're not new parents, but it's still like, I think any part about being a mom is like, you literally have to like navigate this new human being that is sticky, that is always touching you.
Yes.
Like I'm not a tactile person at all. Like there are certain textures that like, with mushrooms, I'm like, I don't want to eat it, or I'll eat it if there's other tactile things that I can pass off as like, so like I have to have it with noodles because noodles have that like, not slimy texture, but it's kind of that like same type of consistency and viscosity. So I'm like, okay, I can handle that. Right.
Yeah. That's wild. I know. Yes. The kids to this day, seriously, my kids are 5 and 6 and they still lift up my shirt anywhere we are. They're like, lift up my shirt, get it. I'm like, what are you doing? Put my clothes down. It's just like, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It takes so much please stop doing that. Like just in general, don't do it in public. Don't do it at home. Like,
yeah, it's like my body. I gave you everything I had. I still love you, but this one's mine now.
My favorite one was I was eating something. I think we were having pizza. And so my daughter doesn't eat the pizza crust. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll eat it. And as it's like going into my mouth, my children are trying to take a bite out of the pizza crust. As I'm like, excuse me. Like, we stopped sharing food like a while ago. Like
they wanted a Lady in a Tramp moment.
as like a mama who's like, no, these are my snacks. Like, no, you cannot take, and then like breastfeeding and all of that. I'm just like, you've already taken so much from me. Stop taking this.
Oh yeah, that's funny. So then now that they're they're 8, 9 and 7? Is Zeke 9? No,
Uh,
he's 8. 8 and 7,
Zeke's
right?
turning 9 in May, so
Okay,
close
all
enough.
right. So yeah, I was like, I know he's close to 9. And then 7, and I know Scarlett just turned 7 like just shortly ago. What's a day in the life of Stephanie and your family? What's it like? Like you get up, what time are you getting up? What goes down?
So I don't really have consistency in my life. I would like a little bit more, but because I work in construction, I have to be at job sites. So it's not a lot of times that I have to be. And so it depends. So if I'm going to a job site, like I might leave at 5:30 in the morning to go to a site. If I'm flying, obviously I'm going to the airport. So, there's a little bit of like, there's not a lot of consistency. So I'll try my best to be like, when I'm working from home, which is
Okay.
like my office space. So when I'm working from home, I typically like to get up at like 9 because I'm
Nice.
not somebody who is a morning person. My little coffee bar right here, like I need my coffee before anything because I'm just like, don't talk to
Fancy
me.
coffee or just plain coffee?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I can be a little bit of both. I know how I have a whipper, which is like it makes like whip like cream for you, like out of
Oh,
a
okay.
can. And so you have to
That's
put like
cool.
the nitrous in it and everything. So like I can make it fancy if I feel like it. And I
Okay.
know all these different recipes to make it, if I want a strawberry whipped cream or if I want like
Oh, wow.
a coffee whipped, which is really good. Like it's like extra zinger. Love to make those. I'm going to be making those soon when I start making some cold brew coffee. But
I think you're going to
so,
start a whole new trend here. I just want the whipped cream. Just
oh,
pass it
100%.
my way.
You can come over and have some whipped cream. We can do
I
that.
know. I'm just going to come over.
My kids do it too. So there's no shame in that
It's
game.
all good. It's all good.
They go to school, obviously they go to public school. And so they'll go and do that. If I take them that morning, that's fine. Sometimes I go back to bed because I'm just like, I'm so tired. That was a lot. And so I'll start work and I will just like power through work and I often like have lunch. I try to eat lunch outside. And so I'll be taking meetings and doing all the crazy things that I have to do for my job. And then I'll eat outside with chickens. It has kind of changed a little bit. So in the morning, I can't really like just lay in bed and do nothing. I actually have to like go open their door and make sure they're out and make sure there's no predators around because we don't have a rooster or anything. So there's a lot of like other things, but that's been a lot of fun to like kind of add that in. And I made them like a little chicken garden. So I've been really loving like trying to tap into my gardening side and getting that a little bit like fine tuned, I think, for them. And then, so then I do, lunch outside, like I said, and I try to do some kind of activity, whether it's, folding laundry or mowing the grass or like going for a walk or some type of activity that gets me moving. Because if I'm sitting in the desk all day, like I'm like, oh, this is so much. Like I don't want to sit here all day. And there are times that I'm like, oh my goodness, it's 2:30 and I didn't even have lunch yet. Like, just those types of days. I try not to do that because I really try to just like schedule in some like downtime to not looking at my screen. I face a window, so I make sure like I'm at least looking outside at some point. So if I'm looking like this, it's because I'm just looking outside at my beautiful roses or whatever. But and so, work the rest of the day, kid pickup, work with their homework, all that fun stuff. And then the evenings are kind of like up in the air. So we'll either do like a church function or I'm a leader for a Bible study. Kids practices. I don't do any of the dinner stuff. So I will sometimes, like, if I can tell, like, my husband's kind of like running behind from his day or anything, I'll be like, hey, do you need like a sous chef? Like, what do you need? Sometimes he's like, oh, I just need this bowl washed. And I'm like, okay, I'll wash the bowl or whatever. He's like, oh, can you check this? I just need you to like take a look, make sure like nothing's on fire. And I'm like, okay, I got that.
That's
There have
nice.
been a few times that like he's like, "Oh, I just can't do anything. Like, can you cook dinner?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll try."
You're like 1-800-Dominoes.
So I do pretty good. And my kids, like, so when EJ went on like a company trip, like I was just, mom was everything. And so like one night they were like, "Wow, mom, this is actually really good. You can really cook." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do know how to cook. I just don't really enjoy it." So
Right.
like, your dad does a lot of it, but I do kind of, he does teach me things like how to
Yeah.
make Spanish rice, because that was one thing, because like I don't know how to make that, and it's delicious, and that's like a staple for my daughter. Like little
Oh.
abuela's gotta have her like rice and beans, and I know how to make the beans, but I didn't know how to make the rice, so I was like, "You got to teach me your ways here, because I don't know how to cook this for her, and this is like her favorite dish, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's important."
Like we're going to have a problem when you're gone.
Right.
That's funny. Do you guys actually call her Little Abuela? Is that her nickname?
That is one of her nicknames.
I
Yes.
love that.
So her Spanish name, so because we're going to that missions trip in Honduras.
Oh, right.
So because we're going to be doing that, I'm like, okay, so like what are our Spanish names? And so Ezekiel is his name, and he likes it, and because he's like, "Mom, it sounds funny. It sounds like, is it kale?" And I was like, "I know, it's kale."
That's funny. I like that.
And so Scarlett,
New
because
name.
right? It's so funny. I love him that he was just like, "I love it, Mom." He loves all about it. And so for her, like, we've called her Roja, we've called her Rojalita.
Oh,
And
that's cute.
so she has stuck with like Rojalita. She's like, "That, you can call me that when we're trying to speak Spanish or whatever." So I've been trying to kind of incorporate it a little bit more, because I want her to like, because Ezekiel is a little easier for him to like easily to transition to be like, "Oh yeah, they're calling my name." But for her, it's like that's a totally different sound. So I've
Yeah.
been trying to like practice with her to see like how quickly she's going to respond to me, because I'm like, I'm calling your name.
Right? And so is she going to call you Mama instead of Mom?
I don't know. So I don't have a Spanish name, and I don't like Estefania. I don't like that. So I'm open to suggestions on my Spanish name, because I've been a whole, like, that whole like phase of like you're doing it in school and you have to pick out a name.
Mm-hmm.
I did all of that, and I changed names like every year because I couldn't
Oh, yeah.
find one that I liked. And then EJ has like, I think he has like preconceptual ideas of like certain names.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Like, no, you can't be this name. I knew too many of them and I didn't like them. That sort of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
What's
Yep.
the saying? Like, you don't realize how many people you don't like until you start picking out baby
Until you
names.
start going through names. It's true.
I mean, it's not wrong. So I'm like, okay, like, so when we were picking out names for me, he was like, "No, no, no, you can't do that." And I'm like, "Oh, I really like it though." So we're
That's
still trying to
funny.
figure out my name.
All right. Okay. I'll have to think on something. I used to do that too when I was a kid. I would write lists upon lists of names that I would rather have than my name, because my brother, his name is Jarek, and he got all the color from my mom, and he just looked exotic and he had the cool name. And then out came me, who looked like everybody else, and my name is Michelle. And you would lift up a rock and 12 Michelles would come screaming out. So there were always a ton of us. And I'm like, how could you give me such a boring name? And so I would just come up
Right,
with these lists, like, I'd rather be
right,
this. Why didn't you name me this?
right.
So I'll think on it. I'll think on that. I can probably dig out some of those old lists.
Oh, I would love that. And it's so fun. Like, obviously, like, I'll talk to the kids about it, because Scarlett did this past year, she added a T to her name. And so the teachers were like, "Oh, we just like want to let you know, like, your daughter added a T to her name." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, her birth
Okay.
certificate, it definitely has one, but, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, it's just an extra T. It's not,
Yeah.
anything crazy. So it's
Yeah, I know,
fine."
right? It's just a T, Mom. It's just a T.
Yeah,
I'll take it over some of the other things that could be happening. Yeah, for sure.
exactly. Exactly.
That's funny. So speaking of which, what's probably the most stressful part of your day or of parenting?
Honestly, it's when the kids fight.
Yeah.
Like, when the kids fight, like, I feel like I can't function. And like, my
Mm.
husband absolutely tunes it all out, like, has no idea what's going on. Sometimes
That's
he's getting
selective
better.
hearing.
He's getting a little bit better because I think he realizes how much it like debilitates me,
Mm.
because he's like trying to play interference of like, I don't want you just like screaming at them, but I also like understand that you don't want it to get too far where, it gets worse. And so that's the hardest part for me. The most
Mm.
stressful is when like, because they say like, oh, they're just like working on their communication. And I'm like, yeah, but like in a really bad way. Like,
Yeah.
can we like work
Like
on
they've already
not,
mastered this form of communication. We need to work on new forms of communication.
right,
So,
right.
okay, question for you though. Okay, were you an only child or did you have a sibling?
I had a sister.
Okay, did you guys
She's
fight a
3
lot
years
when you were
older than
kids?
me. What?
Did you guys fight a lot when you were kids?
Yes. But like, I don't know. I just feel like it's different because we're two girls.
Yeah.
So, like, our fighting was more verbal than it was physical. I mean, we
Oh,
still,
yeah.
like, tried punching each other in the boobs, but
Is that what I have to look forward to with my girls?
100%. So,
I had a brother, so we were physical. I mean, we would draw blood from each other. So there was
yeah,
no boob punching. That's
right.
funny.
And so with girls, like, I just feel like it's more like a mental thing, right? Like, you're going to
Mm,
say hurtful words, you're going to, like, psychologically mess with the other one. At least that's what I experience. And I'm not saying like my sister is a terrible person or anything.
yeah,
Like, I played my own psychological games
sure.
myself, because there was one time that I would hit myself like on the arm, like straight up, like, and then I'd be like, ow, Sam, stop. And my mom caught on, like, she caught on to it. And so the one time she saw me hit myself and she was like, oh, I can't believe you, Stephanie. Like, you're trying to get your
Oh
sister
my
in trouble.
gosh. Just to get your sister in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay. Another note to keep in the back of my mind.
Psychological warfare. Yeah.
That's funny. So then what's the best part of your day?
Oh, so ever moving to Texas, these sunsets are
Yeah.
unlike anywhere else I've ever been. And I've been to a lot of different places. And so it is insane how, like, day after day, I'm just like, just another day, God, of a beautiful artwork. I don't know how you do it, but every
Mhm.
day. And I mean, our back porch faces the west, so I get to see them in a really nice view. And so it's just every day the most beautiful sun.
Mm.
It's my favorite time of day because I get to be hanging out with my kids. I'm not working. Not that I don't like my job. It's just, it's a nice decompressing time where we
Sure, of
all just kind of
course.
get to talk about our day. We get to just hang out. We always have dinners together. It's a huge staple that's so important in our family because we just get to, like, we have this kind of tradition where we talk about rosebud thorn. And so we talk about a bad thing that happened, which is your thorn.
Okay.
The rose or the bud. So your rose is something that is in bloom right now. So a good thing that's happening right now. And then your bud is something that you're looking forward to.
Oh, I
Something that's
like
like gonna
that.
happen. That's good. And then my daughter has been kind of interesting. And so she says, okay, what's the color of your rose? And that's kind of like your mood, right? So did your
Mm.
mood, like, did your thorn really overtake your day? Was it really bad? Or, is your color this or whatever? And I really love that aspect that she added that, because I was like, that's really smart, because it's kind of like a temperature gauge of
Mhm.
where our day really landed, at least until we get to dinner time, and like, where did it land and how we feel about our day.
I love that. I can see a whole bunch of people starting to do this now because they heard it from you. And I love how Scarlett just added that in. That to me, sometimes it's just amazing at such young ages what our kids just pull out of it's just like thin air and they say something and you're just like, oh my gosh, you're just the smartest thing ever.
I
And
know.
I just like, how did you come up with this? And it's just something simple that we just overlook. And it's so awesome. I love that. I might
Yeah,
steal that. Might steal that.
that's okay. You can. I actually got it from a friend of mine, so I
Okay.
can't really claim it as like our idea. Scarlett gets her color, but I got it
Yes.
from a friend of mine. My friend Nikki, she told me about it, and I was like, I love that. Like,
That is
we're gonna
cool.
use that, and because it is like dinner times are that was always a staple for us. It was really
Hmm.
important about our days, and just making sure that our kids have a nice, safe place to come home and talk about whatever's going on or how they're feeling, and so it just kind of created into this thing of like, oh, well, now we get to, and I always say that you have to talk about your thorn first because
Mm.
it gets it out of the way and then you aren't focusing just on the thorn
Hmm.
and you have to move on to the better things and talk about like the good things too.
Yeah, I like it. Because sometimes just verbalizing what's been bugging you is enough to just get rid of it. It's like,
Right.
okay, it's out. It's out of the system. Got it. You
Right.
just hear it and it takes away its power. I like that.
It gives you like perspective too, right? Like
Hmm.
when you hear about like somebody else's thorn, you're like, oh, well, really, my thorn wasn't really that big of a deal. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, I
Yeah.
had to write another email again. Like, okay, that's not so bad compared to like you were dealing
Yeah.
with this.
So then, how do you and EJ find time to spend together?
So prioritizing it. And
Hmm.
so thankfully he works from home too. So we get this really nice thing, especially like during the school year of that, like we get to hang out with each other like
Mm.
during business hours. And so like our water cooler talks are really great. And I feel like I have like another like coworker because he like understands my business, like about like how things operate and he understands like kind of what I do. And
Hmm.
so his stuff, I'm a little more of like, okay, I don't know how a car works. I mean, I
Mm.
do to some extent because my dad's mechanic. His dad was a mechanic. So it's kind of
Mm.
like, well, I do understand how like basic car things, I know what most parts are, but um, just to kind of like swap stories. And then that kind of alleviates like it happening before bedtime
Mm.
because we have found that downloading either like when we're showering or when we're like, about to like go to bed and the pillow talk, that it was almost like, okay, you just like downloaded way too much and now I can't sleep. Thanks so
Oh
much.
yeah.
And so thankfully that's kind of like alleviated a lot of that. And so we really do get to have a lot of time together, whether we get to have a lunch together or we just get to, have a quick cup of coffee together. And then even to when we get off of work, we're together.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then even to the point of, like even when I do travel, like I'll make sure that the days leading up to my travel, that he's not having to do the laundry, he's not having to put away the clothes, he's not having to do anything extra that would be my task while I'm
Hmm.
gone. And then even more so, like he helped work with me on like meal prepping when he was gone because I was like, I'm gonna need a little help here. Help me. And so he kind of worked with me, but I was like, don't do it all yourself because
Yeah.
if you make this like, foie gras, I'm not gonna know how to make that, babe. Like, let's do things.
Basic things, tacos, tacos,
Mac and
sandwiches.
cheese.
There you go.
Got it.
I like that. That one I can do. I can do that all day. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I like that. And that's also really good recognition of the fact that having the pillow talk time, and because I'm totally the pillow talker. Andrew, in fact, we had to start going to bed earlier because that's just like something about my head hits that pillow and it's like, blah, here we go, everything. And so he's like, okay, we're going to bed earlier from now on. But
Yeah.
that you guys recognized that it was starting to become an issue, so you figured out another way around it. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I was even finding myself like speaking negatively, like, wasn't really like, I personally feel like venting isn't healthy
Mm.
because you're not really taking it to the right person anyways. Like,
Hmm.
so to a certain extent, but like it's one thing to express your feelings, but it's one thing to just go down like a complaining trail.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so like, because if you are going down there, like I think you're taking it to the wrong person. I think it should really be taken to God and left at Jesus's feet. Because the reality is is it's not going to be anything like that, right? If you're just going to sit there and complain, well, are you really being grateful? And I know you had that whole podcast about gratitude. And I do think like there shouldn't be any fakeness in the gratitude, but the opposite of complaining is literally gratitude. And I know with like my kids, especially during COVID, we really worked on like, because my kids would like have a meltdown because they didn't get to have the blue crayon for the 5 seconds that they wanted it. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, this is insane. Like, I don't want to meltdown every single time that this small thing, and it's not small to them, but it's small in the grand scheme of things of like, man, you really don't understand, like, you're right, because you're growing up, my parents would be like, you don't know what it's like for kids in Africa. And I'm like, no, I don't. I really don't. It's not that, like, I'm being desensitized to it. It's just the fact of, like, they were trying to show me, like, hey, you're being really petty. This isn't that big of a deal. And so instead of being that route, which I still feel like is important that we do see other perspectives, we see other, you know, culturally that we become a little bit more culturally aware as far as those issues and struggles that people do deal with. But that gratitude is kind of a way to change your mindset of like, oh, this isn't really all that bad. Yeah. And so I was just using it as a tool of like, well, yes, you don't have this blue crayon, but like, look at how far you've come. And like, and so just kind of like changing the mindset of like looking at what we're seeing and to give us a little bit of different perspective. So
there you go. I love it. This has been awesome. I could literally, these episodes for me just go by so fast. And I always like, oh, wow, it's already time. Because it's so much fun. I just need to have like a big get together. We all just sit and chat. But thank you so much for sharing all of this. And you know that we're going to end this with, and you gave me the idea, like shotgun style. Oh, yeah, that's right. Shotgun style questions.
Okay.
I'm just going to throw out a question. It's going to be down and dirty. It's the first answer. I got to look at my notes. First answer that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Okay.
Are you a beach or mountains girl?
Beach.
Beach. Okay. It's kind of funny that you brought this up because I actually have this written down. And you talked about what would your last meal be?
Chiaquias. I know. It's literally like tortillas that are been fried with eggs and onions and salsa and I don't know what else he puts in it, but it's delicious.
Oh, I love it. Okay. This was a fun one. I asked my friend, I'm like, I got to come up with some questions. She's like, okay, this was from a Would You Rather game. Would you rather swim in nacho cheese or ice cream?
I'm going to go with nacho cheese because it's warm and I like warm things.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't want to swim in something cold.
And then who would you freak out about if they came and sat next to you?
Oh, like a celebrity?
Yeah.
Or something?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the many, I love comedy shows, so any like comedian, Kevin Hart, Jerry Seinfeld, Jay Leno, like just, you know, pick any one of those. Johnny Cash, it doesn't matter.
I love it. Okay, last one. Are you a fight or flight type of girl?
Or you know that there's flee too, right? Or
yeah, fight or flight or flee. Yeah, true. Okay.
I'm a fighter all the way.
A fighter all the way?
Yeah. My parents taught me Taekwondo. I'm going to be fighting some people.
There you go. Okay, so with that, we got to end with a joke. And you ready?
Yeah.
I got to remember it. Oh, okay. Why? I know I have a dog on me right now. This is taking, and then a dog barking. You know how it goes. Okay, so why couldn't the Melons get married?
I don't know why.
Because they can't elope.
Oh. The beast of fruit.
That's my daughter's favorite joke right now. She's telling that to everyone. So you'll probably hear it soon enough.
I will hear it on Wednesday for sure.
Now that you've heard it, you'll have to. Oh, you already heard it on Wednesday? See, and what a good sport she is. She played along with me. Thank you. Thank you.
I can't ruin it for everybody else. They got to have
I know, right?
It's a good one.
Well, I know my arm is like moving. There's a dog here. Like I said, I'm petting the dog. Um, I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much for your time and just for being so open and sharing. And it's been fun to get to hear these parts about you. And I know someone else is taking notes and they're like, oh, I'm going to do the rosebud thorn idea. Or, oh, good. I'm like that too. I'm not the only one. So your kids fight. My kids fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens to all of us. So thank you so much for being here. Yay!
Yes, I really
And
appreciate it. I love your podcast and I listen to it all the time in the car and you're doing
yay!
great. And it's just been so fun to hear about, everybody else that you know and all of your beautiful friends but then also like just all the encouraging and helpful because there are some things that I was like, mental note, I'm totally doing that. So
I love it. Oh, good. I'm so glad. That makes me so happy. Yay! So on that note, if you're listening right now or watching, there are some good nuggets that you can get from this. And it's fun to hear these conversations. So make sure that you're going out there and sharing this and liking it and subscribing. That helps more people get to see stuff like this and hear Stephanie's amazing story. And then reach out to me because, hey, I'm always looking for mamas to be interviewing. I love these Come As You Are. And I know I've got a deep bench of friends and there's so many other of you out there that I want to hear from too. So with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you to all of you for watching or listening. Make it fun, make it rich, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.